Hello. Let's talk about one of the most electric, unpredictable, and mentally charged transits we've seen in years. Uranus enters Gemini on April 25th, 2026, and will remain in Gemini until 2033. And when that happens, everything about how we think, communicate, learn, and connect starts to change. Uranus is the planet of disruption, innovation, rebellion, and sudden breakthroughs. Gemini rules communication, technology, ideas, social interaction, media, and the way we process information. So when you put them together, we're entering an era of mental revolution. This is fast. This is curious. This is chaotic in the best way. Think. New technologies reshaping communication, overnight radical shifts in how we learn and share information, unexpected conversations that change your entire perspective, breaking out of outdated thinking patterns. This energy doesn't ask for permission. It wakes you up. And on a personal level, it's going to shake up your life depending on where Gemini falls in your chart. So let's go sign by sign, backhand index pointing down. And if you enjoy this kind of content, don't forget to like, subscribe, and book a consultation with me if you want to understand exactly how this transit will affect your personal chart. Uranus in Gemini. Aries. This transit is going to light up your mind. Uranus in Gemini is moving through your third house, the area of communication, thinking, learning, short trips, daily interactions, siblings, neighbors, media, and the way you process the world around you. And let me tell you, this is not going to be subtle. This is the kind of energy that can completely change the way you think. You may notice that your mind starts moving faster. You get more curious, more restless, more outspoken. Suddenly, you want to learn everything, say everything, question everything. Conversations that used to feel boring or predictable might not hold your attention anymore. You're going to crave stimulation. You're going to crave fresh ideas. You're going to crave freedom in the way you express yourself. And honestly, that can be exciting for you because Aries already likes movement. Aries already likes action. Aries likes being direct, spontaneous, and honest. So when Uranus enters Gemini, it adds electricity to your mental world. It wakes up your voice. It pushes you to think independently and stop repeating old scripts that don't even feel like you anymore. This transit can make you much more bold in the way you speak. You may find yourself saying things that surprise other people. You may speak more freely, more rebelliously, more unapologetically. You may stop filtering yourself so much. And while that can be incredibly liberating, it can also create tension if you're speaking before you've actually processed what you feel. Because Uranus is fast, Gemini is fast, and Aries is also fast. So this combination can be brilliant, but it can also be impulsive. You might jump to conclusions. You might change your mind quickly. You might start one course, then another, then another. You may suddenly become obsessed with a topic for 2 weeks, then move on to something else just as fast. Your attention may feel scattered at times, but the deeper purpose of this transit is not to make you chaotic. It's to open your mind. It's trying to show you that there is more than one way to think, more than one way to communicate, and more than one way to live your truth. This can also bring sudden breakthroughs through conversations. A random comment, a message, a chance encounter, something you read online, or a brief interaction while running errands. Any of these things could trigger a major realization for you. During this transit, the universe may speak to you through ordinary moments, through information, through words, through patterns, through synchronicities. So pay attention to what keeps repeating. Pay attention to what catches your interest. Pay attention to the ideas that make you feel alive. Because Uranus doesn't just bring disruption, it brings awakening. And for you, Aries, that awakening is happening in the mind. You may also feel called to learn new skills, especially ones connected to technology, communication, social media, writing, speaking, teaching, marketing, or digital platforms. This is a beautiful transit for reinventing the way you connect with the world. Maybe you start a podcast. Maybe you speak more online. Maybe you write. Maybe you teach. Maybe you finally say what you've been holding back for years. Your voice wants freedom now. And if you've been stuck in old mental loops, old fears, old assumptions, old ways of speaking to yourself. This transit can break those patterns apart. Suddenly, you may realize that the biggest thing holding you back wasn't your circumstances, it was your mindset. That's the gift here. Uranus in Gemini can help you unlearn outdated thinking. It can help you let go of beliefs like, I have to do it the old way. I shouldn't say that. I need everyone to agree with me. I can't change my mind. I have to sound polished all the time. No. This transit wants your thinking to become more alive, more flexible, more inventive. But there is also a shadow side to watch. Your nervous system may get overstimulated. You may feel mentally on all the time. Too many tabs open. Too many ideas. Too many conversations. Too much information. And if you don't ground yourself, this can lead to anxiety, impatience, irritability, or mental burnout. So one of your biggest lessons during this transit is learning that not every thought needs action immediately. Not every message needs an instant reply. Not every opinion needs to become an argument. Not every spark needs to become a fire. Sometimes the real power is in pausing long enough to ask, is this true? Is this useful? Is this aligned with who I'm becoming? This transit can also shake things up in your immediate environment. Your relationship with siblings, neighbors, or people you interact with regularly may change. You may outgrow certain conversations. You may meet unusual, brilliant, eccentric people who expand your mind. Or you may simply stop tolerating shallow communication and begin seeking deeper, more meaningful exchanges. And yes, travel, transportation, schedules, and daily routines may feel more unpredictable too. Short trips, commutes, plans, and day-to-day logistics could shift suddenly. So flexibility is going to be your superpower. The more rigid you are, the more frustrating this energy feels. The more open you are, the more exciting it becomes. This is a time to experiment with your voice, to trust your ideas, to try new ways of learning, to speak from a place of authenticity instead of reaction, to let curiosity lead instead of fear. And most importantly, Aries, this is a time to realize that your words have power. The way you speak creates momentum. The way you think shapes your direction. The stories you tell yourself determine what you believe is possible. So if Uranus in Gemini is here to revolutionize anything for you, it's your mind first. This transit is saying, you don't need to think the way you used to. You don't need to speak the way others expect you to. You don't need permission to express your truth in a new way. You are allowed to evolve. You are allowed to surprise people. You are allowed to outgrow your old voice and find a new one. Because this chapter is about mental freedom. And once your mind wakes up, Aries, everything else starts changing too. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe and book a consultation with me to understand exactly how this transit will affect your personal chart sparkles. Uranus in Gemini. Taurus, this transit is going to change your relationship with money, value, and security in a way that may feel uncomfortable at first, but ultimately incredibly liberating. Uranus in Gemini is moving through your second house, the part of your chart connected to income, possessions, self-worth, personal resources, and what makes you feel safe and stable in the material world. And because Uranus is the planet of disruption, awakening, and sudden change, this is not a transit that lets you stay stuck in old financial habits just because they're familiar. This is about shaking you out of survival mode. This is about helping you redefine what security actually means. And for Taurus, that is no small thing. Because if any sign understands the importance of stability, comfort, consistency, and tangible results, it's you. You like to know where you stand. You like to build slowly, wisely, and with intention. You don't usually enjoy chaos. You don't usually enjoy unpredictability. You prefer something solid, something proven, something you can trust. But Uranus in Gemini is here to ask a difficult question. What if the very thing you've been calling security is actually limiting your growth? That's the deeper lesson of this transit. You may go through sudden changes involving income, work, spending, business ideas, or personal priorities. Some Taurus placements may discover new ways of making money that feel completely different from anything they imagined before. Others may realize that a job, routine, or financial model they've depended on for years is no longer aligned with who they are becoming. And that can be unsettling because Uranus rarely changes things in a calm, predictable, step-by-step way. It tends to disrupt first and clarify later. So during this transit, you may feel periods of instability around money or resources. Not necessarily because everything is falling apart, but because your life is trying to show you where you become too dependent on what is familiar instead of what is evolving. This can actually be a brilliant transit for innovation. Gemini brings ideas, adaptability, skill building, communication, and mental flexibility. So the money opportunities that come in during this cycle may be connected to writing, teaching, content creation, sales, social media, marketing, technology, digital platforms, side hustles, freelancing, or multiple income streams rather than one single fixed source. That's important because Uranus in Gemini often says, don't put all your security in one place. It wants diversification. It wants mobility. It wants you to stay mentally open. And it wants you to understand that value is not just something you hold in the bank. It's something you carry inside yourself. This transit can bring major awakenings around self-worth. And honestly, that may be the deepest part of all. Because sometimes the financial issue is not really the issue. Sometimes the real issue is what you believe you deserve. What you believe you're allowed to charge. What you believe you're allowed to ask for. What you believe you're worth without overworking, overgiving, or proving yourself constantly. Uranus in your second house can expose outdated self-worth patterns very quickly. Maybe you've been undervaluing your skills. Maybe you've been staying loyal to a financial setup that has already expired. Maybe you've been attaching your identity to being dependable, predictable, or practical, even though a part of you is craving more freedom. This transit will bring that to the surface. You may suddenly wake up one day and realize, I can't do it this way anymore. I can't keep playing small. I can't keep pretending I'm okay with less than what I know I need. And that realization can change everything. You may also become more experimental with what you own, what you invest your time in, and what you consider worth it. Your values may shift dramatically. Things that once seemed important may no longer matter. Things you used to chase may feel empty. And new priorities may emerge that are more aligned with freedom, intelligence, flexibility, and authenticity. That's because Uranus doesn't just change your circumstances. It changes your priorities. It changes what matters. And for Taurus, that can feel like an identity shift because your values are such a core part of who you are. Now, there is a shadow side here too. Because when Uranus hits the second house, it can create nervousness around money if you try to control every outcome. You may feel tempted to panic when things fluctuate. You may resist change because uncertainty feels unsafe. Or you may swing the other way and make impulsive financial decisions just because you want quick freedom. Both extremes need awareness. This transit is not asking you to become reckless. It's asking you to become flexible. There's a difference. You don't need to abandon wisdom. You don't need to stop being grounded. You don't need to throw away structure altogether. But you do need to leave room for innovation. You do need to update your relationship with security. And you do need to stop assuming that stability only comes from repetition. Sometimes stability comes from adaptability. Sometimes security comes from having skills no one can take away from you. Sometimes abundance comes from being willing to pivot when life opens a new door. That is the kind of intelligence Uranus in Gemini is trying to teach you. This can also be a powerful time to develop talents you've overlooked or to monetize something you naturally do well. Gemini energy loves skills, language, connection, exchange, and curiosity. So the more willing you are to learn, experiment, network, and communicate, the more this transit can work in your favor. Your voice may become part of your value. Your ideas may become part of your income. Your adaptability may become one of your greatest assets. And that's a huge shift for Taurus because it teaches you that value is not only in what you build slowly with your hands, it's also in what you can create with your mind. Let's be honest. This transit may challenge your comfort zone. But it can also free you from financial patterns, scarcity mindsets, and outdated attachments that have quietly kept you stuck. It can help you stop clinging to forms of safety that no longer support your growth. It can help you trust yourself in new ways. It can help you realize that you are more resourceful than you thought. And maybe that's the real blessing here. Not just more money, not just new opportunities, but a deeper understanding that your worth is not fragile. Your value is not up for debate. And your security does not have to depend on the old version of your life. So if Uranus in Gemini is here to revolutionize anything for you, Taurus, it's this: how you earn, how you value yourself, how you define stability, and how willing you are to let life surprise you with something better than the plan you were clinging to. This chapter is teaching you to build differently, smarter, freer, more creatively, more courageously, because real security is not just about holding on. Sometimes it's about trusting that you can evolve and still be supported. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe and book a consultation with me to understand exactly how. Uranus in Gemini. Gemini, this is your moment. This is not just another transit. This is a full identity reset. Uranus is entering your sign, your first house, which means this is about you. Your personality, your image, your energy, your direction, your identity, your presence in the world. Everything is up for reinvention. And I want you to understand this clearly. You are not meant to stay the same during this transit. In fact, the more you try to stay the same, the more uncomfortable it's going to feel. Because Uranus doesn't work gently. It awakens, it disrupts, it liberates. And in your sign, it does that through your very sense of self. You may start to feel different, restless, unpredictable, excited, but also unsure at times. You may look at your life and think, this doesn't feel like me anymore. And that's not a crisis, that's a breakthrough. This is the beginning of a completely new version of you. You may change your appearance, your style, the way you speak, the way you think, the way you show up in conversations, the way you move through the world. Even your interests, your goals, and your direction in life may shift in ways you didn't plan. This is not about small upgrades. This is about evolution. Gemini already rules the mind, communication, curiosity, adaptability, and expression. So when Uranus enters your sign, it amplifies all of that, but it also electrifies it. Your mind becomes sharper, faster, more original. You start thinking differently, questioning everything, breaking away from ideas, identities, and roles you've outgrown. And most importantly, you start expressing yourself in a way that feels more real, more honest, more raw, more you. This transit can bring a strong desire for freedom. Freedom to change your mind, freedom to try new things, freedom to not be defined by your past. You may stop caring as much about how people perceive you. You may stop trying to fit into expectations. You may feel a growing need to experiment with your voice, your identity, your path. And yes, that can confuse people, because others are used to a certain version of you. But you're not here to be predictable right now. You're here to be authentic. And authenticity is not always consistent. One of the biggest themes for you during this transit is self-liberation. Breaking out of labels, breaking out of roles, breaking out of the version of yourself you created just to survive or be accepted. This is your chance to ask, who am I now? If I stop trying to be who I used to be? And the answer may surprise you. This transit can also bring sudden changes in direction. You may pivot quickly, start something new, drop something old, feel inspired one moment and completely over something the next. This is not instability, it's realignment. But you do need to be mindful of one thing: scattering your energy. Because Uranus plus Gemini can create a lot of mental stimulation, a lot of ideas, a lot of possibilities, but not all of them need to be acted on at once. You don't have to chase every spark. You don't have to become everything overnight. Part of your growth here is learning how to stay grounded while still allowing yourself to evolve, to explore without losing yourself, to experiment without burning out. This transit can also bring powerful insights about yourself, sometimes suddenly, sometimes through unexpected experiences. You may have moments where everything clicks. where you realize, this is who I am now. This is what I actually want. This is what I've been pretending not to see. And those moments can change your entire trajectory. You may also attract unusual, exciting, or unpredictable people into your life. People who reflect back to you the parts of yourself that are waking up. Conversations become catalysts. Encounters become turning points. This is not a quiet period. This is a defining one. Your voice becomes more powerful. Your presence becomes more noticeable. Your energy becomes more electric. People may see you as different, interesting, unpredictable, ahead of your time. And the truth is, you are. But there is also a shadow side. You may feel restless. You may feel like nothing is stable enough. You may struggle with consistency. You may feel like you're constantly changing, and that can be exciting, but also disorienting. So it's important to create small anchors, things that keep you connected to yourself even while everything else is shifting. Because this is not about losing yourself. It's about finding yourself in a new way, a freer way, a more honest way, a more evolved way. And Gemini, you are one of the few signs that can actually thrive in this kind of energy because you are adaptable. You are curious. You are open. You are not afraid to change. This is your advantage. This is your superpower. So if Uranus in Gemini is here to revolutionize anything for you, it's your identity. Who you are, how you show up, how you think, how you express yourself. This transit is saying, you are allowed to change. You are allowed to evolve. You are allowed to surprise people, including yourself. You are not here to stay the same. You are here to become. And the version of you that is emerging during this time, it's more real than anything you've been before. So don't resist it. Follow it. Trust it. Because this is your awakening. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe and book a consultation with me to understand exactly how this transit will affect your personal chart sparkles. Uranus in Gemini. Cancer, this transit is not loud, but it is powerful. Uranus in Gemini is moving through your 12th house, the part of your chart connected to the subconscious mind, hidden patterns, emotional baggage, healing, endings, solitude, dreams, and everything that operates behind the scenes. So while some signs will experience this transit through obvious external changes, for you, this is happening internally. And that matters more than it may seem, because some of the biggest changes in life do not begin on the outside. They begin in the quiet places, in the thoughts you've been carrying, in the emotional habits you've outgrown, in the old fears that have been shaping your choices without you even realizing it. That is what Uranus is waking up for you. This is a transit of inner awakening. You may begin to notice things about yourself that used to run automatically, the way you react under pressure, the stories you tell yourself when you feel uncertain, the patterns you repeat when you need comfort, control, or protection. What once felt normal may suddenly become impossible to ignore. And once you see it clearly, you can't unsee it. That is one of the gifts of Uranus. It brings awareness where there used to be unconsciousness. It reveals what has been hidden. It interrupts old patterns so something more honest can emerge. For you, Cancer, that can be deeply emotional, but also deeply freeing. Because this transit can bring powerful moments of realization. A dream that lingers, a memory that resurfaces, a sudden understanding of why you've been feeling a certain way for years, a quiet insight that explains something you've never been able to put into words. This is not random. This is your inner world reorganizing itself. You may start understanding yourself on a much deeper level. Not just what you feel, but why you feel it. Not just what hurts, but where it began. Not just what you want to leave behind, but why it has been so hard to let it go. And that kind of self-awareness changes everything. Because once you understand a pattern, it stops owning you in the same way. Once you can name it, you can work with it. Once you become conscious of it, you are no longer trapped inside it. This transit can also heighten your intuition. Cancer is already a deeply intuitive sign, but Uranus in the 12th house can make your inner radar even sharper. You may sense things before they happen. You may pick up on hidden tension in conversations. You may feel more aware of the emotional energy around you, even when no one says a word. Your dreams may become more vivid. Your instincts may become faster. Your need to trust what you sense rather than what looks fine on the surface may become much stronger. But along with that sensitivity can come overstimulation, because Uranus is electric and Gemini is mental. So even though this transit is internal, your mind may feel very active. Thoughts may move quickly. Old memories may resurface unexpectedly. Your nervous system may feel more alert than usual. You may need more sleep, more quiet, more privacy, and more time to decompress from people or environments that feel chaotic. That is not something to brush off. That is something to respect. One of the biggest lessons of this transit is learning that rest is productive when your soul is processing. Not every season is meant for constant outward movement. Not every breakthrough comes through action. Some breakthroughs come through reflection. Some healing happens when you stop distracting yourself long enough to hear what is going on underneath. This is also a transit of release. The 12th house is connected to endings, but not always dramatic ones. Often it is about quiet endings, internal endings, the dissolving of emotional attachments, outdated habits, self-protective behaviors, or thought patterns that have quietly shaped your life for too long. You may begin to let go of certain coping mechanisms. You may stop reaching for things that once helped you feel safe, but now keep you small. You may outgrow the need to carry emotional weight that was never fully yours to begin with. And that can feel strange at first, because even unhealthy patterns can feel comforting when they are familiar. But Uranus is here to break familiarity where it has become a cage. This transit may show you where you've been unconsciously holding yourself back, where fear has had more influence than you realized, where guilt, avoidance, or emotional self-protection has quietly limited your growth. Not to shame you, but to free you. Because once it is visible, it can shift. And Cancer, that shift may be one of the most healing things you experience during this cycle. This can be a beautiful time for therapy, journaling, meditation, spiritual work, dream work, or any practice that helps you understand yourself more honestly. You do not need to force deep revelations. You simply need to be willing to listen, to notice what keeps repeating, to pay attention to what drains you, to observe what emotions come up when you finally slow down. That is where the truth lives. And Gemini's role here is important. Gemini wants to understand, to connect patterns, to name what is happening, to put language to something that once felt vague, confusing, or overwhelming. So this transit is not only emotional healing, it is mental healing too. It is helping you understand your own inner landscape in a new way. And the more clearly you understand yourself, the more clearly you can choose your future. Now, there is a shadow side to watch. You may feel more withdrawn than usual, more private, more tired of noise, more selective with people. And that is natural. But there is a difference between solitude and isolation. This transit supports pulling back when you need to reset, but it does not ask you to disappear. You are not meant to shut the world out completely. You are meant to create enough space to hear yourself again. That is different. You may also feel at times like you are between chapters, like one version of yourself is fading, but the next version is not fully formed yet. That in-between feeling can be uncomfortable. But it is not a sign that something is wrong. It is a sign that something real is happening. You are clearing internal space. You are making room for a life that is not driven by old fears, old wounds, or unconscious habits. And that takes time. This transit may not always give you instant clarity. Some realizations will come in flashes. Others will unfold slowly. But everything that is surfacing now is part of a larger awakening. So if life feels quieter, if you need more time alone, if you feel more reflective, more sensitive, more inward than usual, trust that. You are not falling behind. You are not doing it wrong. You are processing. You are healing. You are becoming more aware of what has been running in the background of your life. And that awareness is going to change the way you move through everything else. Because once your inner world becomes clearer, your outer choices become clearer too. You stop forcing what is not aligned. You stop carrying what is not yours. You stop repeating what no longer fits. That is the power of this transit. Not noise, not chaos, not outward drama, but a deep internal reset that helps you move forward lighter, wiser, and more connected to yourself. And Cancer, that kind of healing is not small. It is life-changing. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe and book a consultation with me to understand exactly how this transit will affect your personal chart. Uranus in Gemini. Leo, this transit is going to change your social world, your future vision, and the kinds of people you feel connected to. Uranus in Gemini is moving through your 11th house, the part of your chart connected to friendships, communities, networks, collaborations, audiences, social media, long-term goals, and the future you are trying to build. So for you, this is not just about random change. It is about who you are growing toward, and just as importantly, who is growing with you. This transit can bring sudden shifts in your friendships and social circles. Some people may enter your life quickly and feel immediately exciting, stimulating, and different from what you're used to. Others may slowly fade out, especially if the connection has become too predictable, too limiting, or no longer reflects who you are becoming. That can feel strange at first, because Leo is loyal. When you care deeply. You often put real heart into your friendships, and you don't always walk away from people easily. But Uranus is not interested in keeping connections alive just because they've been there a long time. It wants authenticity. It wants freedom. It wants your relationships to reflect your evolution, not your history. That is one of the biggest themes of this transit. You are outgrowing certain social dynamics. You may realize that some friendships have been based more on familiarity than true alignment. Some people may no longer inspire you. Some groups may start to feel too small, too rigid, or too disconnected from where your mind is going. And at the same time, you may feel drawn toward people who are unconventional, brilliant, original, and mentally stimulating. People who challenge your perspective. People who open your mind. People who make you feel like your future is bigger than you thought. This transit can also bring changes in your goals. The 11th house rules the future you imagine for yourself, and Uranus here can completely shake up that vision. Something you thought you wanted for years may suddenly stop feeling exciting. A dream you were working toward may change shape. Or a new idea may arrive out of nowhere and make you realize there is a completely different path available to you. That does not mean you were wrong before. It means you are evolving. And for Leo, that can be both exciting and humbling because you are a sign that likes clarity, purpose, and moving towards something with confidence. But Uranus in Gemini doesn't always reveal the whole plan at once. Sometimes it changes your direction by changing your perspective first. You start seeing new possibilities. You begin thinking in a more open, experimental way. You stop assuming there is only one path to the future you want. That is where the breakthrough happens. Gemini energy brings variety, ideas, conversations, learning, and connection. So during this transit, the right person, conversation, post, message, or introduction could shift your entire direction. A casual interaction could lead to a major opportunity. A new community could reconnect you to a part of yourself that had gone quiet. A friendship could become a mirror that helps you see your next chapter more clearly. This is one of those transits where your network matters. Who you talk to matters. Who you listen to matters. What kinds of ideas you expose yourself to matters. Because your future is being shaped through connection. This can also be a powerful time for building an audience, expanding your reach, or showing up in a more visible way within communities, online spaces, group work, or collaborative projects. Uranus in Gemini can bring new momentum through communication, media, social platforms, technology, teaching, or sharing your ideas more freely. And Leo, that can work beautifully for you because you naturally know how to bring warmth, presence, and personality. But this transit adds something different, originality. It pushes you to speak to a wider audience in a way that feels more innovative, more spontaneous, more mentally alive. You may find yourself connecting with people outside your usual type. You may become interested in different circles. You may feel less drawn to approval and more drawn to authenticity. And that is important because the shadow side of the 11th house can sometimes be shaping yourself too much around belonging, trying to stay liked, trying to stay relevant, trying to keep your place in a group, even when it no longer feels natural. Uranus breaks that pattern. It asks, do these people really reflect who you are now? Do your goals still belong to you? Or did you absorb them from the world around you? Are you building your future from your own truth or from a role you've outgrown? These questions may come up strongly during this cycle. And while they may be uncomfortable at times, they are necessary. Because this transit is not here to isolate you. It is here to reconnect you with the right people, the right vision, and the right future. There is also a restless quality to this energy. You may feel more socially unpredictable than usual. One moment you want connection, conversation, and stimulation. The next, you may feel done with people entirely. One group may excite you for a while, then suddenly feel limiting. One goal may feel important, then not at all. That does not automatically mean you are being inconsistent. It may simply mean you are learning in real time what is aligned and what is not. Still, it will help to be mindful of scattering your energy too much. Not every new idea needs to become a commitment. Not every social opportunity needs to become part of your future. Uranus in Gemini can bring a lot of options, but your power will come from noticing which ones genuinely energize you and which ones simply distract you. That discernment matters. This transit can also bring surprising support. People may appear at exactly the right time. Collaborators may open doors. A friend may say something that completely reframes your next move. You may feel more connected to the idea that your future does not have to be built alone. That can be healing for Leo, because although you are strong and expressive, there are times when you feel like you have to carry the vision by yourself. Uranus in the 11th house reminds you that community can be part of your breakthrough, but only the right community. Only the people who leave room for your growth. Only the connections that support your freedom rather than quietly asking you to stay the same. So if friendships shift, let them. If your goals evolve, let them. If your audience changes, let it. If your future starts looking different from what you imagined, trust that too. Because Leo, Uranus in Gemini is not taking you off course. It is widening the road. It is showing you that the life you are building may be more original, more interesting, and more mentally alive than the one you planned. So if this transit is here to revolutionize anything for you, it is this. Your vision for the future, your relationship to community, your sense of belonging, and your willingness to connect with people who truly match the person you are becoming. This is not about staying loyal to an old version of your life. It is about finding your real people, your real direction, and your real excitement again. And once that happens, Leo, your future stops feeling like something distant. It starts feeling alive. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe and book a consultation with me to understand exactly how this transit will affect your personal chart. Uranus in Gemini. Virgo, this transit is going to shake up your career, your public image, and the direction you thought your life was supposed to take. Uranus in Gemini is moving through your 10th house, the part of your chart connected to career, achievement, reputation, visibility, authority, long-term success, and the role you play in the world. So for you, this is a big one. This is not just about small adjustments. This is about change at the top of your chart, which means the part of your life people can see. Your work, your goals, your direction, and the identity you've built around being capable, responsible, and productive may all begin to shift in ways that feel unexpected at first. And for Virgo, that can be a lot. Because you are a sign that usually prefers a plan. You like clarity. You like efficiency. You like knowing what works and improving it. You tend to trust what is practical, proven, and useful. But Uranus is not interested in doing things the usual way. And in Gemini, it doesn't just disrupt, it changes the conversation. It changes how you think about success, what kind of work stimulates you, and what role actually fits the person you are becoming. This transit can bring sudden shifts in career direction. A job may change unexpectedly. A role may no longer fit. A new opportunity may appear out of nowhere. A professional path you thought was stable may start to feel mentally dead. And that last part matters because Gemini needs movement. It needs ideas. It needs communication. It needs variety. It needs room to think, connect, and adapt. So if your current path has become too repetitive, too rigid, or too disconnected from your curiosity, this transit will make that impossible to ignore. You may realize that what once felt secure now feels limiting. That what once felt productive now feels draining. That what looked good on paper no longer feels alive in practice. This is one of the core lessons of Uranus in your 10th house. Success cannot be built on a version of you that you've already outgrown. That realization may come gradually, or it may arrive all at once. A conversation, a job change, a leadership shift, a new idea, a sudden offer, or simply a moment where you realize you cannot keep pretending to care about something that no longer excites your mind. Because that is another major theme here. Your mind has to be engaged. Gemini in the 10th house wants work that keeps you mentally alive. It wants flexibility, learning, communication, strategy, movement, and the freedom to evolve. So during this transit, you may feel more drawn to careers involving writing, teaching, media, communication, technology, consulting, education, digital platforms, marketing, or any path that allows you to think, connect, and exchange ideas. Even if you don't fully change careers, the way you do your work may have to change. You may need more freedom, more variety, more voice, more innovation, more room to experiment. And if your career has been built around doing what is expected rather than what is mentally fulfilling, this transit can become a wake-up call. Virgo often carries a strong sense of duty. You may stay in roles because you're good at them, because people rely on you, because you know how to make things work. But Uranus asks a more uncomfortable question. Just because you can carry it, does that mean you still should? That question may change your life, because this transit is not only about your job. It is about your definition of success. What are you actually working toward? Whose standards have shaped your ambition? Have you been building a life that looks respectable but no longer feels like yours? Have you tied your identity too tightly to being useful, reliable, or in control? If so, Uranus in Gemini may break that open. And while that can feel destabilizing, it can also be liberating. Because it gives you permission to imagine a future that fits who you are now, not who you had to be in order to survive, prove yourself, or stay safe. This transit can also change your public image. The way people see you may begin to shift. You may come across as more outspoken, more innovative, more experimental, or less willing to follow traditional expectations. Some people may not understand the changes you're making at first, especially if they are used to a more predictable version of you. But that is part of the process. You are not here to stay professionally comfortable if comfort is costing you your aliveness. You are here to evolve. And sometimes that means being seen differently. This can also be a powerful time for visibility through communication. Speaking, writing, teaching, creating content, sharing insights, or becoming known for your ideas may become more important during this cycle. Gemini brings voice to the top of the chart, and Uranus brings originality. So part of your career growth may come from saying something fresh, thinking differently, or showing your intelligence in a more public way. That may feel exciting. It may also feel vulnerable, because visibility always asks for some courage. But this transit wants you to stop hiding behind only competence and let more of your mind be seen. Now, there's a shadow side here too. You may feel restless professionally, impatient with slow systems, frustrated by outdated structures, tempted to burn something down before you've thought through the next step. That is where grounding matters, because Uranus brings change, but it does not always bring immediate stability. You do not need to cling to what no longer fits, but you also do not need to create chaos just to prove you are free. The goal is not reckless rebellion. The goal is intelligent reinvention. And Virgo, you are more than capable of that. This is where your natural discernment becomes a strength. You can adapt without losing your standards. You can innovate without abandoning practicality. You can build something new with real care and intelligence, especially when you stop assuming that the old structure must be preserved at all costs. This transit may also bring surprising professional connections. A conversation could lead to an opportunity. A new skill could change your direction. A different way of thinking could open a door you did not even know existed. So stay curious, stay open, let yourself learn. Because Gemini rewards movement and mental flexibility, and Uranus rewards authenticity. Together, they are asking you to become more awake in your professional life, more honest about what you want, more willing to pivot, more willing to update your goals, more willing to let your career reflect your mind, not just your discipline. So if Uranus in Gemini is here to revolutionize anything for you, Virgo, it is this: your career path, your public role, your relationship to achievement, and your definition of success itself. This transit is not trying to destroy your future. It is trying to free it from outdated expectations. It is helping you build a path that is smarter, more flexible, more mentally alive, and more aligned with the person you are becoming. And once that clicks, Virgo, success starts to feel less like pressure and more like truth. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe and book a consultation with me to understand exactly how this transit will affect your personal chart sparkles. Uranus in Gemini. Libra. This transit is going to expand your mind and challenge everything you thought you believed. Uranus in Gemini is moving through your ninth house, the part of your chart connected to beliefs, philosophy, higher learning, truth, travel, spirituality, perspective, and the way you make sense of the world. So this is not about small changes. This is about a shift in how you see life itself. This is about your worldview. And when that changes, everything else follows. You may begin to question ideas, beliefs, or perspectives that you've held for a long time. Things that once felt certain may start to feel incomplete. Not necessarily wrong, but no longer fully aligned with who you are becoming. And that can feel unsettling, because Libra likes balance. You like clarity. You like harmony. You like to understand both sides and find a sense of stability in your thinking. But Uranus does not aim for comfort. It aims for truth. And in Gemini, that truth comes through curiosity, questioning, learning, and exposure to new information. This transit can bring sudden mental breakthroughs. A conversation, a book, a video, a person, a trip. Something can completely shift the way you see things. You may have moments where your perspective changes quickly, where you realize there is more than one way to understand a situation, a belief, or even your own life path. And once your perspective expands, you cannot shrink it back. That is the power of this transit. You are learning to think for yourself in a new way, to question what you've been taught, to explore ideas that once felt unfamiliar, to step outside of mental frameworks that kept you comfortable but limited. This can also bring a strong desire to learn. You may feel drawn to study something new, explore a different subject, or deepen your understanding of topics that genuinely interest you. This could be formal education, or it could be self-directed learning through reading, research, conversations, or experiences. Gemini wants information, and Uranus wants innovation. So together, they push you toward knowledge that expands your mind rather than simply confirming what you already believe. This transit can also bring unexpected travel or a desire to experience life beyond your usual environment. You may feel restless staying in the same place, thinking the same thoughts, or having the same conversations. You may want to see more, understand more, experience more, because your mind is ready to grow, and growth requires exposure. This is also a time where your beliefs about life, purpose, and direction may shift. You may question what you thought your path was. You may rethink long-term plans. You may realize that your definition of success or fulfillment has changed, and that can feel disorienting, because when your beliefs shift, your direction often shifts with them. But this is not a loss of direction. It is a realignment. You are not losing your path. You are updating it. This transit also challenges the need to always stay balanced in your thinking. Libra often sees multiple sides, weighs perspectives, and tries to keep things fair. But Uranus in Gemini can push you to take more ownership of your own voice, to stop waiting for everything to make perfect sense before you move forward. To accept that sometimes growth comes from uncertainty, that you do not need to have every answer to keep evolving, that it is okay to change your mind, that it is okay to outgrow beliefs that once helped you make sense of the world. This is a big shift because it asks you to trust your own thinking more deeply, to rely less on external validation, to become more comfortable with intellectual independence. Now, there is also a shadow side here. You may feel mentally scattered at times, jumping between ideas, changing opinions quickly, feeling like nothing feels solid or fully true. That can be uncomfortable for you because you like stability in your understanding. But this is part of the process. You are learning to hold multiple perspectives without needing immediate resolution. You are learning that truth is not always fixed. You are learning that growth sometimes requires you to sit in the unknown. This transit can also bring encounters with people who challenge your beliefs, not always gently, but those interactions are important because they force you to think differently, to question, to refine, to expand. Not every perspective you encounter will resonate, but each one has the potential to show you something new. That is how your worldview evolves. This can also be a powerful time for teaching, sharing ideas, or expressing your perspective more openly. As your understanding grows, you may feel called to communicate what you've learned, to speak about your experiences, or to engage in deeper conversations that go beyond surface-level topics. Your voice becomes more informed, more curious, more open, more willing to explore, and that is part of your growth. So if Uranus in Gemini is here to revolutionize anything for you, Libra, it is this: your beliefs, your perspective, your understanding of truth, and your willingness to see life in a completely new way. This transit is not here to confuse you. It is here to expand you, to show you that there is more than one path, more than one truth, more than one way to understand your life, and that your freedom comes from being open enough to explore it. So if things feel uncertain, if your perspective keeps shifting, if you feel like you are outgrowing old ideas faster than you can replace them, trust that. You are not lost. You are expanding. And once your mind expands, Libra, your life expands with it. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe and book a consultation with me to understand exactly how this transit will affect your personal chart sparkles. Uranus in Gemini. Scorpio, this transit goes deep. Uranus in Gemini is moving through your 8th house, the part of your chart connected to intimacy, shared resources, emotional bonds, trust, power dynamics, transformation, and the parts of life that are intense, private, and not always easy to control. So this is not surface level change. This is psychological. This is emotional. This is transformational. And for you, that is familiar territory, but Uranus brings a different kind of intensity. It doesn't move slowly. It disrupts. It reveals. It changes things suddenly, especially where you've been holding on tightly. This transit can bring shifts in shared finances. Money connected to other people, partners, business arrangements, investments, debts, or financial agreements may change in unexpected ways. Something may need to be restructured. A situation may no longer feel stable. Or you may be pushed to think about money in a completely different way than you have before. But this is not just about finances. It's about control. The 8th house is deeply tied to trust, and where trust exists, so does vulnerability. And that's where Uranus starts working. You may begin to notice where you've been holding emotional control in relationships, where you've been guarding yourself, where you've been trying to predict or manage outcomes so you don't feel exposed. And this transit challenges that. It brings situations that ask you to loosen your grip. Not because you're wrong for wanting security, but because growth here requires a different kind of strength. The strength to be honest, the strength to be open, the strength to face what you feel without trying to control it. This can bring sudden shifts in intimate relationships. A connection may deepen quickly, or something hidden may come to the surface. Conversations may become more real, more direct, more revealing than usual. You may feel less willing to tolerate emotional distance, half-truths, or power imbalances, because Gemini brings communication into this space. and Uranus brings truth. So things that have been avoided may suddenly need to be spoken. Things that have been felt but not expressed may come out. And once they do, the dynamic changes. This is a transit that pushes for emotional honesty, not surface level connection, not controlled vulnerability, real connection, the kind that requires both people to show up fully. And if something cannot hold that level of truth, it may shift or break. That can feel intense, but it is also freeing, because you are no longer maintaining something that is not fully real. This transit can also bring deep psychological insight. You may begin to understand your own patterns in relationships more clearly, why you trust the way you do, why you hold back, why certain situations trigger you more than others, why you've repeated certain dynamics without fully realizing it. And those realizations may come suddenly. A conversation, a situation, or even a moment alone may bring clarity that changes how you see everything. That is Uranus working in your inner world. This is also about transformation of power. The 8th house deals with who holds power in a situation, emotionally, financially, energetically. And Uranus does not like imbalance. It does not like silent agreements where one person carries more than the other, or where control replaces honesty. So during this transit, those imbalances may become very clear. And once they are clear, they cannot be ignored. You may find yourself stepping out of roles you've unconsciously taken on. You may stop overgiving, stop overcontrolling, stop staying in situations where you feel emotionally restricted, not because you've become detached, but because you've become aware. And awareness changes your standards. This transit can also bring a different relationship with vulnerability. Scorpio is already a sign that understands depth, but you also understand protection. You know how to keep certain parts of yourself guarded until you feel safe. But Uranus in Gemini may challenge the way you define safety. It may show you that true connection doesn't come from control. It comes from honesty, from being able to express what you feel without overthinking it, from allowing someone to see you without managing how they respond. That can feel risky, but it is also where real transformation happens. Now, there is also a shadow side. You may feel emotionally unsettled at times. Situations may change quickly. Trust may feel tested. You may want to pull back, close off, or regain control when things feel uncertain. That's natural, but this transit is asking you to respond differently, not by shutting down, but by becoming more conscious of what is happening within you. What are you actually feeling? What are you afraid of losing? What are you trying to protect? And is that protection still serving you? These questions may come up again and again, because this is not just about changing your circumstances. It's about transforming how you relate to depth itself. This can also be a powerful time for healing work. Anything that helps you understand your emotional patterns, your fears, your attachments, and your relationship to trust can go very deep during this transit. Therapy, shadow work, journaling, or honest conversations can unlock things you've been carrying for years. You don't have to force transformation. It will happen naturally as awareness increases. And Scorpio, you are built for this kind of work. You are not afraid of depth, but this transit asks you to approach that depth differently, with more openness, with more communication, with less need to control every outcome. So if Uranus in Gemini is here to revolutionize anything for you, it is this: your relationship to trust, your experience of intimacy, your connection to power and control, and your willingness to be emotionally honest with yourself and with others. This is not about losing control. It is about transforming it. It is about realizing that real power does not come from holding everything together. It comes from being able to face what is real, even when it changes. So if things feel intense, if emotions surface quickly, if relationships shift in unexpected ways, trust that you are not being destabilized. You are being transformed. And once you move through this, Scorpio, you don't just come out different. You come out stronger. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe and book a consultation with me to understand exactly how this transit will affect your personal chart sparkles. Uranus in Gemini. Sagittarius, this transit is going to completely reshape your relationships. Uranus in Gemini is moving through your seventh house, the part of your chart connected to partnerships, one-on-one connections, commitment, agreements, and the people you share your life with. So this is not casual. This is not background energy. This is direct, because the seventh house reflects who you meet across from you and how you relate to them. And when Uranus moves through this space, relationships don't stay the same. They evolve, sometimes suddenly, sometimes unexpectedly, but always meaningfully. This transit can bring new people into your life who feel different from what you're used to. Unpredictable, intellectually stimulating, independent, unconventional. These connections may not follow the usual timeline or structure. They may start quickly, feel exciting, and challenge you in ways that wake you up mentally and emotionally. Because Gemini brings conversation, and Uranus brings awakening. So relationships now are not just about connection, they are about growth. You may meet people who challenge your beliefs, who see things differently, who don't fit into your usual type. And instead of resisting that, you may feel drawn to it, because something in you is ready for change. At the same time, existing relationships may shift. Dynamics may change. Conversations may become more honest, more direct, or more revealing. Things that have been ignored may come to the surface, because Uranus does not support maintaining relationships that are based on routine instead of truth. This is one of the key themes here. Are your relationships alive, or just familiar? That question may come up again and again. Sagittarius, you are a sign that values freedom. You need space. You need growth. You need meaning in your connections. But sometimes you may stay in relationships that feel comfortable, even if they are no longer expanding you. Or you may avoid deeper commitment because you associate it with restriction. This transit challenges both extremes. It asks you to redefine what partnership actually means, not as something that limits you, but as something that evolves with you. Because the truth is, during this transit, you cannot stay in relationships that feel mentally stagnant. You will need stimulation, conversation, learning, exchange of ideas, movement. If a connection feels repetitive or limiting, it will start to feel more and more uncomfortable. And if a connection feels alive, curious, and mentally engaging, it will pull you in. This is not random. This is alignment. You are learning that relationships are not just about emotional compatibility. They are about intellectual connection too, about being able to grow, think, and evolve together. This transit can also bring sudden beginnings or endings. A relationship may start unexpectedly, or something may change direction quickly. This does not always mean instability, but it does mean that you cannot rely on old expectations of how relationships should unfold. You are being asked to stay open, to stay present, to allow connections to develop naturally instead of forcing them into a structure too quickly. This is especially important for you, because Sagittarius often looks ahead. You like to understand where things are going. You like meaning, purpose, direction. But Uranus in Gemini operates in the present moment. It asks, what is true right now? Not what could be, not what should be, not what you hope it becomes. What is actually happening? And can you respond to that honestly? This is where growth happens. You may also notice that your communication style in relationships changes. You may become more direct, more honest, less willing to avoid conversations that matter. You may speak up more about what you need, or realize where you've been saying yes when you meant no. Gemini brings voice into your relationship space, and Uranus removes the fear of using it. That can shift everything, because once communication becomes more real, relationships either deepen or they change. This transit can also bring relationships that feel different from traditional expectations, less defined, more flexible, less predictable, and that may actually work better for you, because at your core, you need space to grow. You need a connection that allows movement, not restriction. And Uranus in Gemini supports that kind of dynamic, as long as it is based on honesty. Now, there's also a shadow side. You may feel restless in relationships, quickly losing interest, wanting change, questioning whether something is still right for you. And while some of that is part of your growth, It is important not to walk away from something meaningful just because it requires effort. Not every moment needs excitement. Not every phase needs constant stimulation. So, the balance here is awareness. Are you leaving because something is truly misaligned? Or because you're uncomfortable sitting with something real? That distinction matters, because Uranus brings freedom, but real freedom includes responsibility. The ability to choose consciously, not just reactively. This transit can also bring important people into your life who act as catalysts. People who change how you think, how you see relationships, how you understand yourself. Even brief connections can have lasting impact because they reflect something back to you that you need to see. So if Uranus in Gemini is here to revolutionize anything for you, Sagittarius, it is this: your relationships, your understanding of partnership, your communication within connection, and your ability to balance freedom with commitment. This is not about losing relationships. It is about evolving them. It is about creating connections that are alive, honest, and able to grow with you. So if things feel unpredictable, if people come and go, if your relationship patterns start changing, trust that you are not losing stability. You are learning what real alignment feels like. And once you experience that, Sagittarius, you won't want to go back. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe and book a consultation with me to understand exactly how this transit will affect your personal chart sparkles. Uranus in Gemini. Capricorn, this transit is going to disrupt your routines, but in a way that forces you to build a life that actually works for you. Uranus in Gemini is moving through your sixth house, the part of your chart connected to daily habits, work environment, responsibilities, health, productivity, and the systems you rely on to keep your life running. So this is not about big dramatic events at first. This is about your everyday life. And that's exactly why it matters so much, because your daily structure shapes everything. And when Uranus enters this space, the structure you've been relying on may no longer feel sustainable. You may begin to feel restless with routines that used to work. Tasks that once felt manageable may start to feel repetitive or mentally draining. Work environments that once felt stable may start to feel limiting. Systems you've relied on may suddenly stop working the way they used to. And for Capricorn, that can feel uncomfortable because you are a sign that values structure. You like order. You like consistency. You like systems that make sense and produce results. But Uranus doesn't follow structure. And in Gemini, it brings change through the mind, through ideas, through flexibility, through the need for movement and variety. So if your daily life has become too rigid, too repetitive, or too disconnected from your mental engagement, this transit will start to shake that up. You may feel like you can't keep doing things the same way anymore. And that feeling is valid, because this transit is not here to destroy your structure, it's here to update it. You may experience sudden changes in your work environment, new responsibilities, different schedules, unexpected shifts in how things operate. Or you may feel an internal push to change how you approach your work entirely, to become more flexible, more efficient, more mentally engaged. Gemini wants variety, so doing the same thing every day in the same way may start to feel suffocating. You may need more movement in your schedule, more learning, more communication, more room to think and adapt instead of just execute. This can also be a time where new skills become important. You may feel drawn to learn something that improves your workflow or opens new opportunities. Technology, communication tools, writing, data, systems, anything that helps you think and work smarter rather than harder. That's a key theme here. Working smarter, not just harder, because Capricorn can sometimes fall into the pattern of overworking, carrying too much responsibility, pushing through exhaustion, sticking to a system long after it has stopped being efficient. Uranus breaks that pattern. It shows you where effort is no longer the answer, where adaptation is. This transit can also affect your health, not necessarily in a negative way, but in a way that demands attention. Your body may respond more quickly to stress. Your nervous system may feel more sensitive. You may notice that certain habits no longer support you the way they used to. And that awareness is important because the sixth house is not just about work, it's about well-being. So this transit may push you to change your routines around sleep, movement, diet, or stress management, not through pressure, but through realization. You may simply reach a point where you recognize this isn't sustainable anymore. And once you see that, you're ready to change it. This is also a time where your relationship to productivity may shift. You may begin questioning the idea that being constantly busy equals success. You may start prioritizing efficiency, clarity, and mental engagement over pure output. You may want more freedom in how you structure your day, instead of following rigid systems that don't leave room for flexibility. That's a big shift for you because it requires trust. Trust that things can still work even if you don't control every detail. Trust that flexibility does not mean losing discipline. Trust that adapting your routine can actually make you more effective, not less. Now, there is also a shadow side. You may feel scattered at times, struggling to stay consistent, jumping between tasks, feeling like your routine is constantly changing. And that can be frustrating because you prefer stability. But this is where balance comes in. You are not meant to abandon structure completely. You are meant to evolve it, to create systems that are flexible enough to grow with you, to build routines that support your mind, not restrict it, to allow change where it is needed without losing your foundation. This is where your strength as Capricorn comes in. You know how to build. You know how to organize. You know how to make things work long term. And now, you are being asked to apply that skill in a new way, to build a life that is not just stable, but also adaptable. This transit can also bring unexpected opportunities through work, a new role, a new idea, a new way of doing something that saves you time or energy. But these opportunities may not look traditional. They may require you to think differently, to take a risk, to try something unfamiliar. And that may feel uncomfortable at first, but it is also where your growth is. So if Uranus in Gemini is here to revolutionize anything for you, Capricorn, it is this: your daily life, your routines, your work habits, and your relationship to productivity and health. This is not about tearing everything down. It is about rebuilding in a smarter way, a way that gives you more freedom, more clarity, more efficiency, and more alignment with how your mind actually works. So if things feel unstable, if your routine keeps shifting, if you feel like you can't rely on old systems anymore, trust that you are not losing control. You are upgrading your life. And once you find a rhythm that actually fits you, Capricorn, everything starts working better. Not just harder, but smarter. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe and book a consultation with me to understand exactly how this transit will affect your personal chart sparkles. Uranus in Gemini. Aquarius, this is your kind of transit. Uranus, your ruling planet, is moving through your fifth house, the part of your chart connected to creativity, self-expression, romance, joy, passion, and the way you show your individuality to the world. So for you, this is not subtle. This is activation. This is inspiration. This is you coming back to life in a new way. Because the fifth house is about what makes you feel alive. And Uranus here wants to wake that up. You may begin to feel a strong urge to express yourself differently, more freely, more creatively, more authentically. Things you once held back, ideas, talents, parts of your personality, may suddenly want to come forward. You may feel less interested in playing it safe and more interested in experimenting with who you are and how you show up. And that's exactly what this transit is for. It's not about perfection. It's about originality. Gemini brings curiosity, communication, and mental stimulation into your creative space. So your creativity may become more idea-driven, more spontaneous, more versatile. You may want to try different things, explore different outlets, or express yourself in multiple ways instead of sticking to one defined path. You may start something new out of nowhere, a project, a hobby, a creative direction you never considered before. And it may not follow a clear structure, but it will feel exciting because it's real. This is a time to experiment, to play, to allow yourself to create without needing everything to make sense immediately. That's important for you because even though you are naturally innovative, you can sometimes stay in your head too much. You can analyze your ideas instead of expressing them. You can hold back your creativity because it doesn't fit into a clear structure yet. Uranus breaks that pattern. It pushes you to act on inspiration, to follow the spark, to create before you overthink. This transit can also bring changes in your romantic life. You may be drawn to people who are different from your usual type, unpredictable, intellectually stimulating, unconventional. Connections may start quickly, feel exciting, and challenge you in new ways. You may want more freedom in how you experience romance. Less pressure, less expectation, more space to explore connection without immediately defining it. This can be refreshing, but it can also feel unstable at times, because Uranus does not follow traditional patterns. Relationships during this transit may not fit into clear categories, and that's part of the lesson. You are redefining what connection means to you, not based on what you think it should be, but based on what actually feels alive. This transit also reconnects you to joy, and that matters, because Aquarius can sometimes get caught in thinking about the future, the bigger picture, or what needs to change in the world. You carry a lot of awareness, and sometimes that can pull you away from simple enjoyment. But the fifth house reminds you, you are allowed to enjoy your life, to create for the sake of creating, to laugh, to play, to follow what feels good. Uranus in Gemini brings a lighter energy into your experience, more movement, more curiosity, more spontaneity. You may find yourself wanting to do things just because they interest you, not because they serve a larger goal. And that is healthy, because joy is not a distraction from your purpose. It is part of it. This transit can also highlight your relationship with being seen. The fifth house is connected to visibility, how you express yourself, and how others experience you. And Uranus here may push you to be more unapologetically yourself, even if that means standing out more than you're used to. And yes, you already stand out. But this is different. This is not about being different for the sake of it. This is about being real, showing your thoughts, your humor, your creativity, your personality in a more open way. And that can feel vulnerable, because self-expression always involves risk. But it is also where your power is. Now, there is a shadow side. You may feel scattered creatively, jumping from one idea to another, starting things without finishing them, losing interest quickly. And while some level of experimentation is part of your growth, it's important to notice where you're avoiding commitment to your own creativity. Not everything needs to be finished, but some things deserve your focus. This is where balance comes in. Allow freedom, but also choose what matters. You may also experience ups and downs in romance. Excitement followed by distance, connection followed by change. And while that can feel unstable, it's also showing you what kind of connection actually works for you. Not what looks good, not what fits expectations, but what feels mentally, emotionally, and energetically aligned. This transit can also bring unexpected creative opportunities. A project may appear out of nowhere. A conversation may inspire something new. A skill you didn't think much of may suddenly become important. So stay open, stay curious, follow what interests you, because that's where your growth is. So if Uranus in Gemini is here to revolutionize anything for you, Aquarius, it is this: your creativity, your self-expression, your relationship to joy, and your willingness to show up as your true self. This is not about fitting into a role. It is about breaking out of one. It is about remembering that your uniqueness is not something to manage. It is something to express. So if you feel inspired, if you feel restless to create, if you feel like trying something new just because it excites you, trust that. You are not being distracted. You are being activated. And once you allow yourself to follow that energy, Aquarius, you don't just create something new. You become more yourself. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe and book a consultation with me to understand exactly how this transit will affect your personal chart sparkles. Uranus in Gemini. Pisces. This transit is going to change your foundation. Uranus in Gemini is moving through your fourth house, the part of your chart connected to home, family, emotional security, your private life, and the inner foundation you build everything on. So this is not surface level. This is personal. This is about where you feel safe and what that even means to you now. Because when Uranus enters the fourth house, the idea of home starts to evolve. And sometimes it has to be shaken first. You may experience changes in your living situation. A move, a shift in your environment, a change in who you live with, or simply a growing restlessness where you are. Something about your current setup may start to feel limiting, outdated, or no longer aligned with who you are becoming. And that feeling is important because this transit is not just about physical space. It's about emotional space. Pisces, you are deeply sensitive to your environment. You absorb energy. You feel everything. So where you live and who you surround yourself with has a huge impact on your well-being. Uranus in Gemini begins to highlight that. You may start needing more mental stimulation at home, more movement, more variety, more flexibility, or you may realize that your environment has been affecting your mood more than you admitted. This is a time where your definition of comfort may change. What once felt safe may start to feel restrictive. What once felt familiar may no longer feel supportive, and that can be confusing at first, because Pisces often holds emotional attachment to the past, to memories, to people, to places that carry meaning. But Uranus is not sentimental. It is honest, and it asks, is this still supporting you? Or are you holding on because it feels familiar? That question may come up in different ways, especially around family dynamics. Relationships within your family may shift. Conversations may become more open, more direct, or more revealing. Things that have been unspoken may finally come up. And while that can feel uncomfortable, it can also bring clarity. Because Gemini brings communication, and Uranus brings truth. So emotional patterns that have been quietly repeating in your family system may become visible. And once they are visible, they can change. This is also a powerful time for inner healing. The fourth house is not just about your current home. It is about your emotional roots, your past, your upbringing, the patterns you inherited, the way you learned to feel safe. Uranus here can bring sudden realizations about those patterns. You may understand something about your past in a new way. You may see how certain experiences shaped your reactions, your fears, or your needs. And that awareness can be freeing, because once you understand your foundation, you can rebuild it. This is a key theme of this transit, rebuilding your sense of emotional security, not based on what you've always known, but based on what actually supports you now. This can also bring a need for more independence in your personal life. You may want more space, more control over your environment, more freedom to live in a way that reflects who you are now, not who you used to be. That does not mean disconnecting from your roots. It means redefining your relationship to them. You are not losing your foundation. You are updating it. Now, there is also a mental component here. Because Gemini is involved, your thoughts and emotional patterns are connected. You may notice how your thinking affects your sense of safety. Old beliefs about what you should do, what you have to maintain, what you owe to others. These thoughts may start to shift. And as they do, your emotional experience shifts with them. This is why this transit can feel both emotional and mental at the same time. You are not just feeling differently. You are thinking differently about what feels safe. And that changes everything. There is also a shadow side. You may feel unsettled at times, like your foundation is shifting, like things are not as stable as they used to be. And for Pisces, that can feel overwhelming, because you need a sense of emotional grounding. But this is where trust comes in, because this transit is not removing your stability. It is showing you where your stability needs to evolve, where it has been based on the past instead of the present, where it has been shaped by habit instead of truth. And once you see that, you can build something stronger, something more aligned, something that actually supports your growth. This can also be a time where you create a space that feels more like you. A home that reflects your current energy, your current needs, your current identity. Not who you were years ago, not what others expect, but who you are now. And that can feel liberating, because your environment starts supporting your evolution instead of holding you back. So if Uranus in Gemini is here to revolutionize anything for you, Pisces, it is this: your home, your emotional foundation, your relationship to family and the past, and your definition of what it means to feel safe. This is not about losing your roots. It is about strengthening them in a way that allows you to grow. So if things feel like they're shifting, if your environment feels different, if your sense of home is changing, trust that you are not being uprooted. You are being repositioned into a space that supports who you are becoming. And once that foundation aligns, Pisces, everything else in your life becomes easier to build. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe and book a consultation with me to understand exactly how this transit will affect your personal chart sparkles.